like noodles, and then
We're live, by the way.
Oh,
yeah, we've gone live.
Hi, hello, chat. You gotta hear my calorie intakes.
Yeah. So
right, I'm sending myself live as well.
Yeah, we'll try, let's sync this up. Sync this baby up.
I'd rather have a bowl of. No one. That's how you sync. No. Okay. Fine. It's Cocoa Pops, by the way, but fine. Are we missing Rhubba? We're missing Rhubba.
He hasn't come back to me today, so either he's doing something else and he might not know. So I've sort of sent him a reminder, but if he pops in, then I'll add him.
See that the hamsters finally got him.
Yeah,
they got to him, boys.
Very possible. They found him. They found him.
To be fair, him and Britisher do get the short end of the stick when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Oh, they do.
Then they should stop being cringe.
I don't know, man.
Oh, I think Rubber's here. Oh,
where?
Oh, this is dodgy. There's a 6 people limit.
Oh. Oh no. Well.
Oh no.
I haven't got it on my channel. I haven't got a 6 people limit because I have premium. It's only premium doesn't have limits on people.
Okay,
well,
hang
10, a 10 people limit. So does this require stopping your stream AI and starting it on my channel?
Oh, okay.
It will be still live for British Night.
Yeah, it's still live on my end.
We have to rehost it. The room.
So you can just all pile into my Discord if you want.
Should we jump ship to your Discord then, British Night?
Oh Christ alive!
See, this is boom.
This is false stuff.
This is going very well.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Alternatively, we could stop the stream, restart again. I could host it and record it and send it to AI, but it'll take a while actually to send it. What am I on?
No. Tell you what, I'll just buy the bloody upgrade.
Well, I mean, we still got to rehost.
It's an investment. Stonks.
Yeah.
Stonks.
Hang on a sec. Let me buy the upgrade.
Hello to people watching on my end, by the way. Sorry for the delay.
Real amateur hour right now, guys.
But the professionals do the work, man.
The current crusade.
Oh,
holy shit! How much does it cost?
bite
Okay.
your tongue.
Are you having financial difficulties?
Isn't there just like 1 month free trial?
AI almost got my channel banned the other day.
That's funny.
He came on. He was very cross. He said something about lining people up.
Based.
He was getting very graphic. He was getting a little bit graphic about it. We just had to cool him down. He was so angry.
Okay, well, this is what we want to do again. So please get that.
That's fascinating. Face war now.
Oh, he gets so angry. It's funny.
Rubber's in my Discord.
Yeah, so we gotta wait until AI's bought the upgrade. So I don't even know.
Okay, I bought the upgrade, but
you have
he's gone now.
You have to refresh. I'll let him know. Or Knight can let him know.
Would you like me to contact? Would you like me to quickly jump into a Discord call with Rhubba and tell him to come back?
Yes, please. Yeah. Just say he can come back now.
I guess I'll just sit here then.
You can come back into the stream call, into the call now. He's managed to get the upgrade, so you can come into the call. Right. Cheers, bud.
I love how we're still alive and doing all this. This is fantastic.
Highly professional.
Damn, we're 5 minutes into starting the stream now, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Let's. Yeah. So skip the first 5 minutes. I'll put a note on there to skip the first 5 minutes, everyone.
Also, who's echoing?
So this stream is something that I wanted to bring together for some time now. Oh, here's Rhubba. Hello.
It's very kind of you to upgrade on my behalf.
Nah, that's all right. Yeah. So this stream we put together. It was Owine's idea originally. He sent to me in chat, which was to basically talk about the future of the country, the union. I also put in British identity because I saw last Sunday we have like after you and on BBC One after Andrew Neil's show, there's a thing called the Big Topic or Big Talk or some sort of culture-based show, and it was basically a band of mitwits talking about the British identity, the English ethnicity, and they were all getting sort of confused and not really understanding what the significant differences are between ethnicity, the British identity, the British citizenship, and the empire and everything. They just got it all mixed up, and it was really cringe to watch. But I watched it nonetheless. So we're going to be talking about the union, the British identity, what our own opinions on this are, and I guess we'll sort of figure out what we can take away from this. So we are dual streaming tonight with British Knight and Chicago Liberal or Median
Or whatever you want me to whatever you want to call me, I guess. I'm still with Chicago here.
We all know you as Chicago Liberal, so we'll stick with that.
Collectively, we are the Current Crusade podcast.
Yeah. And I guess I say British Knight, do you want to you take it away from here as well?
Yeah. So tonight we're going to be talking about the future of the Union and British identity for the Current Crusade on the Current Crusade, and of course on AI Stream. We're going to be talking with P-Man, AI Shiatori, Rhubba, Jaws, and Owine, and me in Chicago. And I'm going to give my perspective as an anarcho-capitalist living in the UK, and Chicago is going to give his perspective as an outsider being from the colonies. So, I believe.
Well, I mean, we colonized you in the 20th century, so watch what you say.
Yeah, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Thanks for all the wonderful new ideas you've been giving us lately.
Yeah, it was only a virtual colonization, though. It wasn't a physical one. We still claim that.
I do not mean to be that one guy in the room, but I will say this. If I remember now, are you actually living in Chicago?
Yeah.
Chicago Liberal. Yeah, now, if memory serves me correct, Chicago was a French colony.
Yeah.
Explains why it's a shithole,
It
then.
was. And then we fucking slaughtered the French here.
Well, you were still a French colony, so
we still killed French people, so it's okay.
American
French colony.
French, that's two strikes.
Primarily by ethnic Germans.
Yeah, Chicago's full of Irish people and Germans, so there's not really many French people here right now.
Germans, ugh.
Oh, God, that's three strikes right there. Irish, French, Americans. That's three strikes at the moment.
Germans as well.
I'm just remembering on the 24-hour live stream when we rated all the European countries. Certain ones came out considerably lower than others.
Yeah, as God ordained. So we'll go around the panel. For me, I'll start with myself, and then we'll go to P-Man, British Knight, go around the panel that way. I currently, where I stand on the union is that it is. I think it is not as under threat as the media likes to claim it to be. I think the threat currently is from politicians. That's the threat of the union. I see at the moment. who are completely clueless and out of touch with their with people with the public in general at the moment, and quite easily get overexcited with the sensationalization of the media and its various takes. When it comes to the future of the union, I think this is one thing I've thought about, which is the one way to save it, because it is on a path to destruction. If it's allowed to continue be ruined by politicians, is we need, especially when it comes to the likes of Scotland and Wales, to counter the devolution. You now need to really force the I guess Westminster to devolve powers locally on a county level, so you take that control away from the Assembly and Parliament and make it near enough redundant. That's the only way I can see forward at this moment in time. As much as I'd like to abolish the Assembly and abolish the Parliament, I don't think there's any political will from anyone at this moment in time to do that. Even though that would be my preferred option, I just don't think that's likely. So, P-Man, what's your take on all this?
Well, I would actually say that the union is greatly under threat, and the reason why I think this is happening is that we are seeing an increase in saliency now of people taking in their regional national identity over their common British national identity. Like if you were to say, for example, watch an old England game from the 1990s, you would very often see far more Union Jacks than the St. George's flag. Where now you see far more Union Jack. I'm sorry. You see far more St. George's flags, and I think what that is doing is that you're almost within the British people putting a narrative across that there essentially are a bunch of different groups which are almost all competing for power. And I think this is what is taken off, especially in Scotland. With the narrative in Scotland, which is being pushed by the SNP, is that the Scottish are a completely different group now that are just being persecuted by the English over Brexit, and they're almost at the bottom of the pile. And as we have seen, for example, I hate to go too academic, but we've seen, for example, in terms of the minimal group paradigm, that if you split people into groups by just things like a toss of a coin, they very often just have in-group preference, and they very often distribute resources for maximum group differentiation. So what I would say we need to do is almost, I think we need to almost rein in the powers of these local assemblies and put across a true unified British identity once again.
I actually think a lot of this is whipped up by the media. It's good headline fodder. The union's in peril, and you get all the midwit commentariat sort of wading in on this. But I just think you hold firm. A once in a generation referendum means just that, and you don't blink. And I'm worried, like Al is worried, that the politicians are going to blink on this one.
Yeah. I always think back to the 2019 the general election, where you had if you were someone who doesn't follow politics and you open Twitter on the day of the election, you would think Labour would win a historic landslide, given what was going around in a certain echo chamber. So that's why I'm really hesitant with the narrative. I think there are people who are pushing separatist narratives and are using. We've seen the emergence of, it was like a Northumberland regionalist party, which is basically just a soft group Marxist party, and I would describe them as I guess that's sort of like a copy paste SNP for Northumberland, and they've been having some really awful takes on Twitter lately, so I think there are people who are doing it for multiple reasons. I think where the English nationalism thing is strong at the moment is the idea that Scotland has its parliament, and there is this thing where, you know, when it comes to nationalism and flag waving with Wales and Scotland, it's acceptable. It's an acceptable form, but with England, it's automatically tied to far right nationalism. And then when you dig deeper into, well, why is that tied to far right nationalism? It plays into the false narrative that the whole premise of the Union and the Empire was all, I guess, the foundation was all on England, which is again complete false narrative, historical narrative, because you know, it takes two to tango, Scotland, and you definitely had a large proportional say in how the empire was, how it was founded, how it was formed, and how it was run and governed. And here we've got multiple statistics on how the British military was disproportionately levels of Scots in the officer class throughout that time period. But I mean, yeah, that's something that I've sort of noticed that seems to be a sort of a current narrative. British Knight, so what's your take on all this?
Well, mine's going to be slightly different because at least I'm going to come from it from a different angle. Because I'm an anarcho-capitalist, I do believe deeply in the concept of secession, of peaceful secession. However, if there was going to be peaceful secession in this country, I don't think it would be along the borderlines as we understand them, or rather it shouldn't be, in the UK. Because here's the thing, if you open up that can of worms in terms of secession, then it sets a precedent, and then very quickly you're going to have enclaves of Scottish Unionists wanting to secede from the newly formed Kingdom of Scotland, or rather Scottish Republic.
You've seen that in Shetland first.
Yeah, you'll see it in Shetland. Shetland will probably break off. Hello, ladies and gents, by the way. It's Owain. We did have a brief intro earlier. Anyway, it's
You're echoing slightly, Owain.
Yeah, slightly echoing.
I'm echoing through someone else's sound. I can hear myself echoing.
The
So-
jaws.
It's
I
not.
thought
I'm wearing
Discord
headphones. It can't be me.
Sorry,
I also hear myself.
It might be me. It might be me, I'm afraid. Sorry.
All right, right.
No worries.
So, okay, it's stopped now. Right. So, so as I see it with Shetland and stuff like that, I'd imagine. Well, if historically, right, if you take the historical context of Britain, right, because what Britain is still is, and like it's still underneath the surface, still very medieval in kind of its boundaries and relationships between the regions. Strangely enough, it still harbours those medieval rivalries, which is really odd, because you still have in Scotland, you still have the separation between the Norwegian part of Scotland, like in Shetland and the Hebrides, and then you have the very heavily Gaelic areas in the Western Isles of Scotland, which with actual Scotland, and then you have the Southern Lowlands, which are very Anglo-Saxon and Cumbrian in heritage, and so that you could have that Balkanization of Scotland in that way, and then you got England, then the Midlands. The north-south rivalry is literally just the modern version of the Northumbrian Wessex Mercian rivalry. Whilst in Wales, it's got the same thing where you may think, oh, Wales is just a very small area, it must be united. No, it's still got a rivalry between all of its old kingdoms of Dyfed, Gwynedd, and Glamorgan. They're all still rivals, like the west, the south, and the north. It's the same thing in Ireland. And the thing about the British Isles is it still has all these rivalries. And if this goes to its logical end point, we're just going to end up back in those medieval nations.
Because here's the thing, though. It's what I think the economic argument for secession is the fact that it would actually benefit what it was by the time of the Norman invasions, what you might call Wexisian England, so not including like what is now northwest England, which was the Kingdom of Strathclyde.
The irony of Welsh and Scottish secession is that it's the best thing that could happen for England.
Yeah,
you just preempted my argument.
All the areas of economic tax net contributors are in Wexford in England.
Because I've been playing around. I know as a diehard British patriot, as I have been. I've been wargaming Welsh independence, right, and how I'd go about it and all this all the time. And I think about it because if you think about how decolonization happened in the empire, it is the next logical step to basically break up the UK in that respect, because it's about England making itself more efficient. And what's the next step for the English? To kick out the bloody Celts. To kick out the one, because like the empire was a drain upon England, and now Scotland and Wales are both a drain upon them. So what is the incentive for England keeping us around?
I tell you why. Not so much with Wales. But certainly with Scotland, and this is me with my realpolitik hat on, is that we do not want another hostile nation on our borders. And I consider an SNP-run Scotland sharing a land border with the UK to be a huge threat.
Yeah,
because I've seen over. But I mean, these days Ireland or Éire, whatever you want to call it,
Ireland.
Is kind of, we've reached an accord. We don't have the levels of antagonism. In fact, actually, apart from the IRA, there really wasn't that much levels of antagonism. About 30 years ago with the 30 years ago with the things like the Lockerbie bombing and all that, the Scots were very soft on the terrorists, very soft. And I just fear well, put it this way. Imagine if England becomes a separate nation and Scotland's a separate nation, and England decides to have an immigration policy that is stricter, and Scotland doesn't. Scotland has the free movement thing. So how many of them will sneak over the border? This is a kind of realpolitik issues. What if, you have to think through the consequences of such a decision. No matter how idealistic or even romantic the nations of the Union going their separate ways is, there are real consequences, and I just do not trust a heavily left-wing Scotland sharing a land border with England.
Part of my wargaming comes down. It ends straight away as soon as you're going, look, what's going to happen with the army? That's the biggest question. You ask any SNP person that, they don't know. You're not going to have a Scottish army, are you? They'll just talk demobilise. It's like, well, do you think the people of Scotland want no army? No, they want an army. And you can't have a Scottish army because you've got to somehow fork up all the money for that then. And you're not going to be able to afford an army. End of. Same with Wales. Wales would never be able to afford an army. So you'd be still relying on the English army. And B is currency. You're still going to have, even Ireland can't escape the London pull of investment. And they're supposed to be independent, even though technically they never were truly economically independent. And so you still end up with that. And so what you'll end up with, even in this world of Welsh and Scottish independence, is still a British army because of necessity, because we're an island after all. You still need a British Navy. It just makes sense on every single level. And you still have a Bank of England controlling Wales and Scotland, Scottish currency. So it literally is no different to what Scotland has now.
There's also one big issue in Trident. Obviously, our nuclear deterrent is currently located in Scotland. So
we have our air. When we ward off encroaching Russian bombers, the airbase we use is Lossiemouth in Scotland. Likewise, we have Scapa Flow, we have Rosyth, we have these. These are strategically important places for UK defence, and that has to be taken into consideration.
But what's an interesting idea that is being proposed a lot now in, because when I talk about that, on the flip side, there's another idea now these nationalists are coming up with, well, one, it relies upon a lot on the EU. That's another thing. That's a different. That I think we'll get into in a bit now. Is how much any opposition to the UK relies on the EU existing. But the second idea is that they talk that in especially the Welsh Nationalist Manifesto is that they're going to have a Celtic Confederation. That this is now what they're going to be pushing for. They want to form a confederation now with Scotland, if Wales became independent, with an independent Scotland, where there would be a Celtic army and a Celtic currency. That was their alternative to it. And all things would be governed by Edinburgh. So literally, it gets worse for Wales than it does in London. It's like, London, hop in the M4, let's go. Edinburgh? It takes a while to get to Edinburgh, mate.
I mean, the thing is, though...
I unironically honestly think Wales would actually benefit economically from ceasing to be a political entity and just becoming part of England.
It probably would.
Yeah.
But this sounds like something Nutjob would make up in a Discord server. The idea for like a Celtic currency of a union of Wales and Scotland. It just...
Oh, no, dude, it's a very popular idea, the Celtic Confederation.
But it just seems mental.
Yeah. I mean,
the philosophical the actual basis of it is very weak anyway, because the whole Celtic history thing's a bit of a sham, because it's made up by the Irish to justify a lot of the stuff that happened, and Celtic nationalism, because a lot of Welsh history doesn't really align with Scottish and Irish history that well, because what they won't tell you is that the Irish were very genocidal in Wales for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yes, and hence we have St. Patrick Island.
Hence why St. Patrick exists, and hence why Pembrokeshire's English.
And I'm sure that there are many Irish people who would just love having Scotland rule them, because that went really well last time the Scots intervened in the big way in Ireland.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's a perspective from the independence side. A lot of the independence guys, right? You'd be very surprised. They're very conservative in outlook, actually, but they're just so conservative. They're medieval. But no joke. But so for the union, right? When it comes to the union, really, where I stand on it. I think there's two ways to go. You have to go for one or the other. This halfway house we're stuck at right now with devolution doesn't work. I think that's quite well agreed here, isn't it? I think the best way is to go back to the kind of Victorian model of it, where you got to have a smaller state and then devolve more power down to the local regions. Because obviously the problem is right now is that so many things are centralized. It's obvious that all the power is concentrated. And what devolution is I understand you probably know about this, Rhubba, is the the projects in the 60s and 70s by the Labour governments to de-Londonize the UK by moving a lot of the infrastructure out of London, like the DVLA was moved to Swansea, for example, and and so on. That was a big part of one of the Labour schemes. Well, that's what devolution is. It's just the evolution of that scheme, where we're going to move this part of the bureaucracy to closer to you because it's not in London anymore. That's what essentially all it is. And so that means all power is still centralized, and it's not addressing the real issue.
No, because it's just moving the building, isn't it? It's just
that's all it is. It's move the Welsh office to Cardiff, but but remove the Welsh office and put worse people in charge of it. Idiots, quite frankly. Not even the subs bench of Westminster.
Sometimes I look at things like Germany or even America or Australia, where they have a federal model, and I toy around with the idea that
Tony. Yeah, I understand, because Tony Abbott goes on about how the UK should adopt the Australian model, and I think to myself, I look at the Australian model and go, I don't know. I don't know what the rest of the panel thinks about that, because they call it the Westmarship system, don't they? Because it's a mix of the American and UK systems.
Why is it whenever our governments want to do something kind of semi-unique, they always steal it from Australia?
Because there's the Canadian system as well, in my mind, I think Canada should have been made part of the UK. But that's a different question entirely. But but no, the Westmarship system. I don't know. What do you AI at night? Do you know anything about the Westmarship system?
All I know is that they technically have a parliament, but that parliament has a senate in it, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Because the Senate basically just sounds like another name for it. Sounds like it's a House of Commons, but just under a different name.
I'll tell you what the Australian Senate, because I lived a few years out there, and how the Australian Senate functions. That it often gives representation to some of the minor political parties. So there's a third party in Australia called the National Country Party, and they're quite well represented in the Senate because essentially, when the leading party in the House of Representatives gets too annoying for the general public and they don't want to switch support to the opposition, then there's an Australian Democrat Party, which is kind of an SDP type setup, and the National Country Party, which is very conservative, representing farmer and mining interests. And they get some representation in the second chamber, and sometimes the tail can wag the dog in that scenario.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I'm thinking when you say that now, what made me think back? I can imagine is how elected Senate would work in the UK now instead of a Lords. Even though I like the Lords traditionally and all that.
Yeah, it was better with the Toffs.
If it was elected, you would probably have, because people would elect bipartisan in our Senate. They would elect like UKIPers and reformers into the Senate. Into the UK Senate.
No,
it'd be like the EU elections.
No. Because what will happen? This is what will happen when you have a Conservative government. It will, because they'll do it so it's like halfway through, and then what you'll have is Labour would dominate, and then when you have a Labour government, well, I would say Conservatives would dominate, but all the Lib Dems would dominate. It would be some party that would manipulate its way round. And while it would be nice if it was Brexit Party, UKIP, or Reform, or Lawrence Fox's party, that's a big risk, because you could just be handing Labour another lever of power.
Well, they have all the levers of power anyway, because the unions make sure of it. So my number one thing is that we need to get rid of trade unions. That's my big.
Why? I don't know why you'd argue for more twats in suits, basically.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I was thinking of the Australia and the Canadian, and I also we're talking about the mixer, like the American system, is it still goes down to the thing is you devolve so much that you have I mean, without being rude to our American guests, you have politicians in certain areas of the United States. I'm going to be very careful because this is what got my stream deleted. The last stream I did was deleted by YouTube when I talked about the US election. So I'll be very careful how I frame this. You have certain areas which are fortified, election and politically wise, by a certain group of people who use very imaginative and questionable means of retaining power, and there's no opposition there to call them out on it, and they miraculously win surprising results in elections.
Well, so Labour did in Peterborough.
Yeah, like Labour in Peterborough, like Labour in Tower Hamlets, like Labour, I guess, in 2005 in Birmingham, but they were caught at that time by the. So yeah, they did rig the election there because it's, the judge said
Labour should be barred for one if it gets caught rigging one. It should be barred from standing in that constituency at least.
Yeah. But the Labour Party, because they've been caught several times, and what they do is they just chuck what they'll do is they'll say
they'll chuck them out and put them back in again after a few years.
Well, usually it's councillors or activists who rig the election. What they do is they chuck those particular activists under the bus, and they say, "Oh, these activists were acting rogue and everything. They have nothing to do with the Labour Party," and they kick them out of the party and chuck them under the bus, and then they get banged up, or given a fine or whatever. Usually it's banged up because it's quite serious crime over here to commit election fraud. So that's usually what happens with that. I think when it comes to regional devolution, I think it has to be something beyond just the political party system, because I think that's one of the problems that we're in at the moment is the political party system, because you've got Labour, which is just going off the deep end, and just at this point they're just denying reality. They're basically doing what the Democrats are doing at the moment, denying reality, and everyone is a white supremacist Nazi. They're so good. And you got the Conservatives who are doing nothing and are just at large swampy creatures.
I see the problem is when you talk about getting rid of the political parties, the UK system's always been partisan. There used to be only two parties, for example. So the UK system's designed for parties.
At that point, the monarchy had a lot more involvement, and the elections were more localized as well. The central elections didn't matter as much.
Well, I think when it comes to people of title, so like people who are descendants of like the various earls and barons and what have you, who are unable, they still hold the title, but they're unable to take their seats in the Lords because of Blair's reform to hereditary peers. I mean, I'd be looking to overturn that. I'd bring them back in, and I would create like a system where you have this element of the nobility, who are non-aligned, because they were non-aligned, and they largely are non-aligned politically.
So when we talk about bringing back hereditary peers, right? I think about it this way, right? We have just done Brexit, right? And that's been framed the entire time over sovereignty and over democracy. And you have to try now. As say you wanted to bring back hereditary peers, you have to try and bring back hereditary peers as a democratic and sovereign act. Otherwise, the UK people won't accept it, and I don't think you're going to be able to do it. And so this is where we get tied up. We get, I think, a lot in our circles. We always get tied up with what, personally we would want in kind of how we design a government. But we got to think about how would we go about creating the best scenario.
It is part of the reason why I kind of regret arguing for Brexit in terms of a democracy thing, because
we're tied into it now, so we have.
You should be able to win on the face of it being.
I mean, my response to you on that point was, I would just say, well, okay, so you you're in charge of the Conservative Party, and you say, right, I'm going to bring back hereditary peers. Well, we know that Labour and Lib Dems will probably oppose that, and they'll put that in their manifesto. We'll have our manifesto, and then the public get to vote based on the manifesto. So we could put it in there, and if I mean, it wouldn't be a priority in the manifesto by any stretch of the matter. It would just be on there. So you would, and when you win, if you win, when you win, you'll be able to
sneak in.
Well, yeah, because it won't be, because like most priorities on elections, this is like the economy, health, NHS, your usual stuff like that, defence maybe. So it depends. I think when it comes to the sovereignty, it's the fact that no matter what you could do with the EU, you couldn't, if something was like an European edict was passed, you don't have the power from any of your representatives, including the members of the European Parliament, to do anything about it, to stop it, to block it. And that was the crux of the problem. If you've got a party like Labour or whoever who are passing something you don't like, you can just go out and not vote for them. You just go out and vote for another party to get them out.
Right. The thing is, I don't think it's just a party political issue. What we've seen in recent years is that, particularly on the left side of politics, they can mobilize a huge hinterland of non-elected organizations. They can mobilize the media. They can mobilize academia. They can mobilize just activists who spend their entire lives just being activists. And so any proposal that you come up with, it's not like okay, let's bring back hereditary peers. You're not just up against the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats, and the Scottish National. You are up against every talking head, every commentator, and they'll all be platformed to, basically say it's fascism being brought down on our heads again. And you've got to always take the hinterland that surrounds the Labour Party into consideration whenever you're proposing anything new.
Right. Yeah. So, you got Knight. You're also streaming, so I want to see what your opinion is on this. Going to sit you there silent for ages. No.
How about Chicago
I'm
Lib?
listening.
I was going to say, how about Chicago Lib, as an outsider? What do you make of our current predicament at the moment? Because I guess you're aware with like the sort of Scotland. Welsh. We just sort of talked about the Scotland Welsh situation at the moment and the future of the union. As an outsider, what's your take on this?
I think you're doomed.
Woo! Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Well, what do you say about America?
Oh, they're already
America's
doomed.
doomed. We've been doomed ever since 1775.
Based.
I forgot to mention Chicago is an unironic loyalist for the revolution.
Fantastic.
So
Isn't it? There's a guy on YouTube who's still a loyalist, isn't it? And he dresses up in like kind of the whole red coat garb and does all like
base.
talks about musket shooting and he in his room he has like all the monarchist flags and stuff like that there.
Fucking hero.
Yeah, it's also.
Is it Brandon F? Is it Brandon F? His name?
I'm going to go follow him right now.
Yeah, he's
I
also a
We've
communist
also
defender.
got
Though.
the English loyalist, I think he's like a Native American loyalist as well. I know.
That's a bit stranger. Native American British loyalist.
I
Is
think
it
like
just possible he hates America? Is that just
I
it?
think,
He just hates America and
maybe.
wants to side with every single enemy of America.
yeah, it's Brandon F.
Al
And I think
Qaeda
as
was
well,
the good guys.
You know, okay, like the alternate history hub exists. There's a right wing version of alternate history hub called Monsieur Z.
Yeah, I love watching this video.
Yeah, he's kind of. I think he verges on loyalist. I really do, because the way he talks about Britain, he's like, Britain will reform the empire again. Yes, every video,
time.
every single time.
I think Turnip Merchant, because I've had him on here before, but I think he wants the Confederacy back as well, probably more so than the.
Oh
British
yeah,
Empire.
no, he
Well,
does.
that too.
Yeah.
I'm just here, like, just give back New England. New England can become part of, like, kind of Canada, then British Columbia can separate off.
Sure.
And then have, like,
New
I don't
England?
want
Oh,
New
you want Libby land? Why?
Look, turn the Conservative.
Take
I'd
it,
love to.
please.
I want to
Please,
move
I
to
will
New
pay
England,
you.
dude. I want New England. I like New England.
You take back Washington and Oregon.
Washington's a
and then
swamp
you
anyway,
purge
literally.
them of the current population.
Do you know, literally?
And then you add them to Canada.
So, ladies and gents, the Foundation's podcast coming up. One day we will be discussing the foundation of Washington, how it is literally built upon a swamp that nobody wanted.
Yeah.
It's a very funny thing because it was between three states, and Maryland just said, "Oh, we need a capital," because they didn't want to put it in Philadelphia, which is the actual capital of the United States, ladies and gents.
At that time, it was actually New York City, but yeah.
Yeah, and so they decided that they would just give this part of the swamp, and then they were going to build a city there. And so anyway, but back to the task at hand, yeah. Now you're here. What is what we were talk? I wanted your opinion on something earlier. Now, what was it, lads? Memories. I've lost it.
I think we talked about hereditary peers, and then yeah.
So,
yeah.
What's your opinion on hereditary peers here?
Yes.
Well, I'd 100% vote for that, but that's also because I just don't like democracy. So.
I'm in favour of it, but I've got to be realistic and say, we're not even in the place where you could talk about that in normie land.
We're fortifying our sacred parliament, Rhubba. That's how we do it.
Try and stop me.
I'm not in favor of
my
peerage,
role
by the
in
way,
all
so.
in all of these discussions, my role is usually I'm the guy that war games the possible counter moves by the left. That's
Yes.
kind of what I do.
Yeah.
I think. See, I'm not in favor of peerage. I don't think there should be any political affiliation in the Lords. I think it should be made up
No.
of purely the best and bright of the best and brightest of the and most senior kind of people in the UK.
Yeah, but they're all internationalists now.
No, because the problem is then you fill them with middle class, and then then you have like the rule of scientists, the rule of like middle class scientists,
You get
lawyers.
Mark Zuckerberg equivalents.
Yeah,
They
basically.
tried this in France 1789. They tried it in Russia 1917.
Maybe it should be
Absolute
like
commie, Owen.
maybe we should bring back village elders and just have a council of elders.
Just go back to druids.
You
return to druids.
must seek the opinion of the wise man. Let us go.
Yeah, I mean,
Mind you, that system works in Fiddler on the Roof, doesn't it? I mean, Fiddler on the Roof, they have that system.
But the village alderman is a very real thing, and actually, I mean, like my town, it used to have like if you go like some of the records, you go back to the bloody 1400s, you had like the village alderman, and they really got stuff done.
Like the village I'm in now has that. Like now, we still have like old guys you'd like go to get stuff done in the village.
My village was always owned by the bishop, so here we are.
Well, we did have a manor, but we do have a manor, but the old lord who passed away a couple of years ago, he wasn't hereditary. He just bought it.
We have a palace. We have the bishop's palace, which is the Bishop of St. David's official residence.
Ugh, sounds disgustingly Catholic.
Well, see, it burnt down once, right? And the bishop who took it was puritanical, and so he built it as bland as possible.
Well, that's just the word. Why would you have a bland palace?
Dude, we're Welsh. This is how it works. For some reason, the Welsh had a big phase where everything had to be bland.
Horrible.
It ruined it.
Phase? I thought that was their history.
Apart from the English bits.
No, well, the Welsh have a very good art. You should see. Type in St. Farkhan's Church, right, and it'll show you the interior of that church, and it's very colourful and very beautiful. But the Welsh, for some, adopted terrible ideas of when Puritanism came around because because the Welsh were naturally a very devout people, always have been. They were very devout Catholics, and then they became, as soon as we became Protestant, very devout Protestants. And then as soon as that both of those went to mess and started hating each other, we became very devout Christian, just Christian, and we became non-orthodox, and we became non-conformist. But anyway, I'm not going to go into a whole history of this. Back to the task at hand, right? The Union. So, what is? I'll ask you guys. What do you think is the main? Is the main crux of the issue?
I think there is a huge problem where you had a lot of immigration from the empire, and then you have the and this is where I'm going to get a bit Enoch Powell, so I'll be careful how I tread on this subject.
Yeah, but if you do Enoch Powell when he was on the Dick Cavett show, you should be all right.
That's what I'm trying to do, Rhubba, because he actually put it out. He put it in a way which made sense, and Dick Cavett said something on it which was it doesn't make sense, and I think Dick Cavett realized it didn't make sense. But I'll just go say this: you had when it comes to British identity, at that moment in time when Enoch Powell was around, and when my grandparents were around, you had English, the ethnicity of English, Scots, Welsh, Irish, so on and so forth. You then had the British identity, i.e. the peoples of the British Isles. And then, of course, you had the British imperial identity, which could include the British Isles, but also the colonies in Africa, the imperial territories in India, and to a lesser extent, places like Canada, New Zealand, Australia, before and during when they became Commonwealth, they became like self-governing Commonwealth entities. And what you had is after the end of the empire, when we started retreating from the position of the empire, you had this legacy of people of the empire, but then you had on the left, you had people who hated the empire but still wanted us to behave like we were in the empire, i.e., helping people. And I'm seeing a lot of it now from the left, and especially the internet. Like when you had like the various like the Guardian and the Independence response over Burma, the military coup in Burma. And you had like, British government needs to do this. British government needs to do this. Same with the Indian protests. British government needs to say this, needs to do this. It's
the horseshoe is real.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because like, I was saying to the guys, like, we're not an empire anymore. We can't just tell these regional rulers,
not an empire, sadly anymore.
Sadly anymore. Yeah, we don't have gunboats we can send down to Burma to stop them, like the military coup down there. And personally, I mean, Aung San Suu Kyi is a very corrupt politician, so maybe the military might have a point. This might be the one coup I might endorse.
I won't go that far. I don't know.
No, you see, the thing is that this was an argument, right? In that region, back in 1963, where you had President Diem of Vietnam, South Vietnam, and he was saying, "Oh, he's far too corrupt. A military coup would be the right thing." The Americans backed the military coup, and then it turns out the South Vietnamese military were even worse.
Yeah, that's how it usually happens.
Yeah, so, I mean, the trouble is they were mixed up in the. I mean, South Vietnam wasn't genuinely. Just be genuine for a second. If America was not in South Vietnam, it wouldn't even last a second. The only reason why South Vietnam limped along was because of American interventionism. I mean, basically, I was 2/3 of the country for its entire period was under the control of the Viet Cong.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that Diem had a reasonable chance of keeping it together in the 1950s, but by the early 60s, he'd lost control of all. He'd lost respect, lost control. He was on his last legs.
Britain.
But we're using analogies, around the world. Why Britain doesn't want to get? Well, you think we don't want to end up in Burma doing what the Americans did in Vietnam, which was to say, "Oh, we need to prop this up and reforge this nation in our own image."
Yeah, but that's the thing. I don't know, like, what the left wants us to do, because they say empire bad, and then it says like it's like the meme of like the guy poking the stick, saying come on, do something. It's like the left doing that to the government, saying come on, do something about like India and Burma, and then it's like the next image like come on, like poking the empire, like doing things like they genuinely still believe the empire exists. And at the same breath, they will be the ones that will decry how evil it was.
Here's the thing: the left have. I don't know if it's intentional or it's their own kind of stupidity in the area, but they've adopted the white man's burden creed.
Yes, they have. Yes.
And what do they want to do? They want to get rid of all images of the guy who came up with that phrase. But what's the difference between Cecil Rhodes and your modern leftist globalist?
Well, I mean, one difference I would say would be Cecil Rhodes actually went out in the field and got his hands dirty. He didn't sit in like a suit in the middle of an ivory tower, calling everyone bigots and Nazis.
I think it's because Nazis didn't even exist yet, though. So
but he didn't like sit and like call everyone like I guess
Prussian.
like
Prussian.
Well, the thing was back then. What was the big bad? I don't know. Napoleon. You're a Napoleon.
Yeah, you're a Bonaparte. You're a Jacobin. You're all Jacobins.
I bet you're radical. That's the word, isn't it? Because the party of the radicals existed then, isn't it?
You're a radical.
The radical party still exists.
America's ruled by one at the moment.
Also, the radicals won the argument in 1800 in America anyway, so we've been screwed.
I would say there's a big difference between the empire though and these modern leftists in that the empire did not want global domination.
No, we actively avoided it because we could have had it anytime we wanted it.
Yeah.
There was.
Yeah, that's right, P-Man. There was that was the thing. They didn't want global domination. I think because there was, we got burnt quite badly in China. The more we like to admit. I know that we like to dunk on the Chinese for getting them hooked on heroin. Yeah, we got them hooked on heroin and opioids. But no, we did. We did take a bit of a loss there because we did want to partition China. It just never materialized because it was. I guess it was beyond the sort of political will and stretch, and there was also like problems.
We did control it for a while. We had basically control. We had control of their economy for a long stretch.
Yeah, we did, and then the Boxer Rebellion and all that sort of transpired.
Right. So
it wasn't exactly hard considering that by the time we took control of them, they were still trading in silver as if it was still. Yeah. Like 800 years ago,
isn't it? I don't know if this is true or it's just a joke, but my mate thinks it's true. Isn't it? By the time when we turned up in China first, we sent them a letter and they replied in Latin because they thought the Roman Empire was still around.
I'm not. Yeah. I've heard that story. I'm not
sure because they were so insular.
Yeah, literally, the reason why they stopped being the center of the trading world is because they were that averse to change.
I've heard one great story about the Boxer Rebellion, in that apparently they did some like dance or something. They thought that could make them immune to bullets.
I've heard that one. Yeah, and then the Germans just like formed because the Germans were marching up China, and they saw them like do this dance in front of them, and the German officers like, okay, form ranks, and then they just sort of gunned them all down, and then went after women and children, in full German fashion, went after the women and children, and then carried on marching to Peking.
The world better hope the British ones on the hill. We actually show mercy. Kind of.
Yeah. The Germans were. That was a part.
Don't tell the Irish.
Actually, I don't want to say the Boxer Rebellion was caused because of the Germans. Because when they had their sphere of influence, they were really, really cruel and horrible to the Chinese population.
See, the only cool guys to be a bit to who should have been able to tag along with us were the Portuguese.
As was ever thus.
The Americans during the Boxer Rebellion were pretty cool too. We didn't fucking do anything. We just held on to Tianjin for you guys.
You held on to the embassy.
Useful third wheel. Thank you, America.
You're welcome.
Yeah, there was Charlton Heston shooting on the rampart.
The trouble is, the Americans were already. One of the worst things the Americans did, and I still believe strongly in this, that the Americans were the ones that secretly brought down the British Empire.
No, it's not secretly. It was very openly. It's very open. Yeah.
Well, it was very much a case. It was very much a case after the Second World War, taking a deliberately very economically broke Britain and saying, "Well, yeah." Actually, America basically saying, "Yeah, actually, you don't have a choice. You need to." Well,
America owns Britain now, doesn't it? We are virtually the 51st state. In the way, more and more, we become more American every day.
You say virtually, but I think you mean literally virtually, as in over the internet.
Yeah.
First of all, here's a topic for another day: is that most of the global political problems that the West has to deal with today are as a direct consequence of America's stance over the Suez crisis.
Yep.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's you and the French.
God damn it, Chicago! Why would you do that?
And the other thing is that I've been saying lately that Britain is the accidental last free nation in the world.
Hold up. There's two going on here.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to pay back you guys for accidentally destroying your empire? And when I mean accidentally, I mean very intentionally. But let's just go and nuke Paris.
No, the radiation cloud will drift over us.
Paris is very close.
It's too close.
Yeah, but then it just hits all the remainers instead.
If I remember right,
it hits me, and that can't happen.
Yeah. Isn't it? If there was a Tsar bomb that went off in Brussels, it would be seen in 3 European capitals. It'd be seen in Amsterdam, Paris, and London.
Yeah.
Well, of course it will be seen in Amsterdam.
Oh yeah, of course. Amsterdam would probably be in line of fire. London would be not far off.
Do you want us to nuke Brussels instead?
Can I, at this point, can I just say this is all in Minecraft?
Yeah,
Of
actually,
course.
now this is a spicy topic that we can talk about in Minecraft, and I was chatting with them. It was like people in Don the Plebs Discord. It was on his, well, not his Discord, but his website Discord that he's created. So, I was saying that I guess now when I joke about sending the Royal Marines over to DC and then torching the capital.
Please do in Minecraft.
Yeah. Now they're all saying, yeah, please do it in Minecraft, please. That is in Minecraft and all in historical context, and not
just remember in 1812 we let you live.
I just thought maybe
that was a mistake.
What would be
and also winning a battle after the peace treaty has been signed doesn't count.
No, it doesn't. New Orleans doesn't count.
Yeah.
We did also manage to do successful raids off of Wales though with the Navy.
Yeah,
so...
but you got
the U.S. Navy was the star of the show in 1812.
God damn it, Wales! Why did you let the Americans near?
I just realized
the Yorkies did as well.
Rhubba, I just realized we captured Chicago because the American Governor General of Chicago was too
that was
drunk.
Detroit.
Was that Detroit?
Yeah, that was Detroit.
Okay, that might be okay. Well, yeah, same sort of area anyway. But yeah, he was too drunk to muster the men.
Rightfully a part of Canada.
Chad.
Yeah.
Michigan belongs to Canada. Right.
I don't care.
We don't want it now. It's too poor now. But back before.
Stop! We don't need Detroit for God's sake.
We did when it was good.
Please pick more of our problem areas.
Yeah,
I will
Texas.
pay you for this.
Texas and Florida.
No, that's not a problem.
The
Both of
trouble
those
is
belong to Spanish, man.
Nah. Florida. We won Florida off the Spanish fair and square.
When?
Just after we lost
when?
to you. 17-18, wasn't it? We had it for like 6 years.
Take Florida.
We had it for like 6 years.
We did have it for just after your independence, like briefly.
Yeah,
I can't remember because that was the really weird thing. The Spanish took over Louisiana province.
Spain.
And it all got a bit like confused. I know that we did have Florida for like some amount of time.
Right. So I think it's important that we recenter again on Britain.
Yeah, Britain. Yeah.
not on our love for the empire.
I was just going to say, actually, talk about the British Empire and everything. I'll go around the panel. So there's maybe apart from our American guest here, because it probably wouldn't apply to him, but how would you define yourself, like when you have the census or anything else? Are you English or are you Welsh or British? Like how would you guys describe yourselves?
That won't apply to me at all.
No.
So P-Man.
Yeah.
How do you describe yourself?
I've always put down both. I mean, again, I guess it would be
British English.
The thing's opposite. I live right on the south, so
yeah.
Again, I've got nothing to do with Scotland. I'm literally the least Scottish place in the entirety of England. So
yeah, that's fair enough. So it'd be like English British or British English or what have you.
Yeah, I pretty much. I think I'll put down British identity because it's just. I reckon the Union has together. If we were to go back to a common just identity, I would be very happy just to put down a British identity. But as seeing as just the way things are going, it does seem like the English identity may just be the thing which will be the way forward, potentially. But we have to wait and see.
Yeah.
British Knight, I'm guessing you say British.
I tend to say British, or if I'm being if I'm being specific, like if I'm talking to an Iron Nat or a Scot Nat, I'll say British English. But I tend to say British overall, yeah.
We want to ask Museum. Rhubba.
Well, I like the British. I lived a few years overseas, and when you do that, you become British. You stop thinking about English. And when Australians used to say, "Oh, you're English," I'm like, no, British first. English is a subgroup. It's just, So, but then I would add another layer, which was I'm a Londoner by birth and upbringing. Even though I can't stand going to the place now, but that's my heritage as a Londoner. And so, yeah, it's British first, English second, Londoner third.
Charles?
I'd probably put English, actually. I don't put... I mean, maybe that's more recent. Maybe when I didn't think about it as much, I'd put British. But I just don't have much love for the Scots, to be honest. Maybe... I think, to be fair, it's only the Scots that I have more of a problem with. I have some family in Wales and Northern Ireland, seem all right.
Yeah, in Northern Ireland, it's still the highest percentage of British people, people who identify purely as British in the UK.
I'd probably just put English, to be honest, if I could. If not, British.
So I'm Welsh-British. So obviously...
Wait, are you Welsh?
Yeah, I'll believe it. So where I come from...
Wouldn't have known.
Where I come from, it's very contentious to say you're just British. Because I'm from deep Welsh country. And if you just call yourself just British, there will be people of an older age will be fine with you, but many people would start calling you a Sais, which means just in English. You're English. Even if you just support England in the football, say they do like in the last World Cup when they got to the semi-final, you're like, yeah, I'd like England to get to the final. You get called a Sais. You get called an English. You have to support anyone but England.
That really annoys me because it's not nationalism based on the greatness of your own country. It's nationalism based in opposition to someone else.
That's Celtic nationalism for you.
Which is which is, I guess you could say, jingoism, which is what the left screeches about whenever you talk about British identity, and especially the separatist, like nationalist leftists, because that's what they claim that we are. The reason why we want Brexit, the reason why we are patriotic is because we want to. It's out of spite for the European powers and everyone else outside the UK, which is just complete projection.
Yeah, totally.
But at the same time, fuck the French, right?
Yeah, well, the problem is with Celtic nationalism is it's based entirely in Irish IRA, Irish Republican philosophy. That's where it derives from, and then the Irish Republican philosophy derives from French philosophy, and now you see why it's in opposition to the English, because I think it was a French game the entire time, because the French would rile up the Irish, and then the Germans did that afterwards, and it's entirely a European project, the Welsh, Scottish, and Irish nationalism, and hence why they're so pro-Europe. In my mind.
What's worse is that it's like Irish nationalism is also heavily tied to Leninist Marxism.
Well,
there was a lot of Leninist Marxism going around during the rebellions in the 20s.
I get when wasn't there during the 20s?
Yeah, I mean, it was British United though in the 30s and 40s. The Irish Republicans started flirting with the Austrian artist crowd.
Yeah, the mid-century Germans.
Yeah, the mid-century Germans.
Are we still calling them that? They were the Nazis!
You can't say that. You can't say it, man.
We can't. I've listened.
All right, I take it all back. I talked
about election. I mentioned election fraud and Nazis. I'm going to get. This is going to be absolutely demolished by YouTube. I'm already under.
You'll be made verboten.
Yeah.
I'm setting
That's
up a
exactly what a mid-century German would say.
Roleplay.
Yeah, role-playing. Yeah.
So I think we should actually start a Minecraft server and play it while we're talking on streams.
We will. I will be starting a Minecraft server soon. So anyway.
Well, I'm excited.
If we take
honestly, that collective gasp was the most autistic thing I've heard in a long while. Minecraft server, yeah.
Yay. I remember 2010.
But you can tell you can tell there's many of us here of the same generation. Rhubba's just there like, what's going on? I play Sims.
Yeah. No, I do. Because, well, it's a family game, and we all take it into. But put it this way: if it's after 10 o'clock at night, I'm playing it. if it's before 10 o'clock at night, one of the boys are playing it.
So right. Anyway, back to so during the 1930s and 40s, Plaid Cymru, the SNP and the IRA were all involved together in working as probably the most prominent inside groups for the mid-century Germans in the UK, to the point where Plaid Cymru had actually destroyed an airfield in Swansea that caused the Swansea bombing that killed upwards of maybe 5,000 people. So Plaid Cymru were directly responsible for those deaths in Swansea, because the airfield that was meant to defend Swansea was damaged, and therefore they couldn't launch planes to defend it. And they'll brush that under the rug and then keep talking about their dam when nobody died. Have you ever watched that Archer episode about the Welsh terrorists?
Yes, I have. It's good.
That everything Michael Sheen says in that episode is true.
Also, I mean, again, we've talked about this on previous streams. The one thing I found interesting about the Welsh nationalists is they really had this obsession for the Hugo Boss mid-century German outfits. It's still
underneath Welsh nationalism, there is still a very fascistic core. I'm not even lying. So if you go to many of the Welsh nationalist locations, I'll bring it up now. I'll get up the flag for you.
I would say that's fairly obvious from just looking at that, right?
I'll show you the Welsh fascist
They
flag.
seem pretty sort of nasty.
If you put it in the pub chat,
so if we go flags of Wales, so it's
on a side note, I honestly would not be surprised if, like, a lot of these, sort of quote unquote nationalist parties, which are more, as we've previously said, jingoistic parties, if they effectively just became fascist in all but name, just simply by the nature of how they represent themselves and how open they are to authoritarian.
They are quite social nationalists.
Look that up.
Well, just like I don't even really want to just throw around the word fascist willy nilly. It's like
as a technical term, this is the definition of what it is.
That's what the left would do.
Yeah, it's I genuinely, based on their leanings, I do genuinely believe that, and like Plaid or the SNP would be more than willing to accept National Socialism.
So it's called the White Eagle.
Practice.
That's you'll find that sticker on many cars.
No!
On many cars in football games and on many Welsh monuments.
Does that come from India as well, or
no? It's meant to represent. Apparently, it's meant to represent Owain Gwynedd, not Glyndŵr, of his coat of arms, which was an eagle, and Snowdonia, and the whiteness of Snowdonia.
Yeah, context means nothing these days.
Yeah.
So it's how I interpret it. I interpret that as a hate symbol.
Yeah. So
I find it very offensive.
So
personally.
that you'll find, and no one bats an eyelid at it, even though it's an entirely fascist symbol. It's just quite hilarious but they get away with it, and Plaid Cymru get away with it. I don't know. It's remarkable. And I don't mention
when the SNP
plebeians, right?
starts
Don't mention
having
the
flags with a faggot of sticks on it, then we'll start worrying.
SNP are commies. Welsh Nats are fash. SNP Nats are commies. I'm not saying that because I have many friends who are Welsh nationalists. I know. They're just localists.
Wait, you're friends with fascists? That's
no
association.
I have many good friends who vote Plaid and Welsh nationalists, but what they want is just they just really big into kind of devolved the idea of devolution max. I think.
Why are you friends with idiots, Owain?
I'm friends with everyone. One of my best mates is a communist. And ironically, I think it's important. I don't like using unless they're. unless if they're willing to treat you in mutual respect and debate ideas, I think it's fine. I think you should be friends with everyone.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's good. Now, one thing I did want to talk about, because I mentioned briefly earlier that I was watching after Andrew Marr show. There was this thing on called the Big Ideas, Big Talk, which I don't know if you guys seen this show, and it's usually you've probably seen like snippets here of like when Peter Hitchens was on there, or
It's the Nicky Campbell show, isn't it?
Yeah. And you had Tommy Robinson back in the day when he was. Oh no, sorry, can't mention Voldemort's name. TR was on there along with George the Poet put together. I remember that episode. That was quite a fun one. And who else did you have? Yeah, you had Douglas Murray. I think Jordan Peterson's been on there. I think even Rosa Dawn's been on there, actually, come to think of it. One of
Rose
our
has, yeah.
So there's been quite a lot of people have been on here, and the episode I saw last Sunday was you had Andy Burnham, who's like for those that don't know, that he's the Labour mayor of Manchester. You also had a Conservative MP, and you had members of the public and a few journalists and commentators and activists and the usual swampy like people, and they were all just talking about British identity, identity as a whole, English regional identity, and one thing that I found, which was from the members of the public, which was especially those in Scotland, and this came from the guy that they asked was an American who emigrated to Scotland, and he was under the impression that when it came to the legacy of the empire, that was all England's doing. And I think, and obviously we know we talked about this before. We know that's just not the case, and it's a complete distortion of reality and of history. And so I think a lot of it, I mean, and when I was watching it, you had, I mean, even the Conservative chap didn't really hit back on that. I mean, some of the stuff that the nationalists say, you can easily hit back at them, and in the old saying, own them with facts and logic and all that sort of stuff. But I think there seems to be a real lack of education on the foundations of how the United Kingdom came into being.
It was a Scottish idea, not an English one.
Yeah, this thing, cause a lot of people on the surface will say, okay, well, the Act of Union was 1707, so that's how it happened, and it was you had a German king, and usually this is how the left like to make us sound multicultural. To say, oh, well, we had a German king, and we had Scots, and we had.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and it doesn't work like that. There's a lot of nuance and quite heavy detail complexities to all this. Now, in reality, the Act of Union officially happened upon the death of Elizabeth I, where her nephew
became
James.
King James
when we had a personal union, as to use the correct terminology, as I know from EU4.
Yeah, personal union. Yeah.
I'm playing that right now.
Yeah, he was King of Scotland, and he because obviously Elizabeth I didn't have any children, he was next in line to the throne. And
well, he wasn't, but he was the next Protestant in line.
Well, I think he was the next in line.
Is he?
Are you going to say the?
Am I mixing up Charles? Am I mixing this up with Charles?
I think you might be mixing.
Yeah,
up.
you might be. It was James II was the Catholic one.
Next in line, and yeah, he was a Protestant, so that helped move things along. And yeah, he inherited the crown, and then and as you said, technically it was a personal union. It wasn't an official act through Parliament that united his two realms together, but. He didn't do it because I think there was one of the reasons he didn't do it was, number one, there was a lot of hostility from the Scottish nobility towards him, especially Catholic ones, and there was a lot of hostility from the English nobility to him. So it wasn't politically at the time. It wasn't a feasible thing to do. But what you did have, and this is where it gets him, it does get important to remember, is he was the one, the Scottish king who became King of England, King James. He coined the term Great Britain.
Yes, it was a rejuvenation of the Roman words.
Britannia Prima in Latin. But the problem is Britannia Prima does not include Scotland. Britannia Prima is to mention everything below Scotland. Everything below Hadrian's Wall is Britannia Prima.
Yeah.
If I can interrupt, I do have a super chat here, so I'd like to read it.
Yeah, actually, we'll just take a break to go through any super chats from yourself, Richline.
No, okay, it's just the one. From Rory Herbert for $2.17. Thank you very much. The East India Company was granted royal charter by Queen Elizabeth I on the 31st of December 1600. My distant cousin Thomas Alabaster was appointed as their first accountant. It was this company that was very much responsible for the British Empire.
Bumbling towards the British Empire.
Well, as me in Chicago know, the lore of Rory Herbert is ever expanding, ever growing. You know, he is a person with a lot of connections in a lot of places and a lot of history. So yes, thank you for the super chat, Rory Herbert.
I think Rory Herbert might be a rogue aristocrat.
I think with Rory, it's just that the lineage of a great dynastic family somehow went down the other branch, and he's like in the branch that has had to make do without the patronage and the titles.
Could be worse. You could end up at Cromwell and have your branch entirely stopped, and you end up with me.
But there's
could be even worse, that one, as we've gone over several times.
But you know, Rory Herbert is our equivalent. You know, when Danny Dyer found out he was descended from Edward IV, you know, it's kind of Rory's in that situation where, except he hasn't got a kind of lad image.
Right. So I want to let's ask Knight. Do you have any topics about Britain you want to talk about since you're hosting on the other end? Because I think we've been going on for ages here. I'm wondering, since you're hosting, it's only right you have a say on what kind of on a topic about the Union. Do you have one?
Well, I guess what I would want to talk about is, like, do you think there is a way to create what you might describe what me and Chicago have previously called a British monoculture? Like, because I do think one did briefly exist during the 19th century when we became the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Especially, and a large part of that was to do with empire, and because we had this common mission. But like, even to the point where Irish, as admittedly oppressed as they were, did even a lot of Irish people did manage to find some kind of acceptance in that. So I guess I'd just like to talk about. I guess you could call it even if it's not necessarily a neo-imperial monoculture, but just, do you think a 21st century British monoculture can be achieved?
I think in one way it can. I think it only can be achieved by I think it only could be achieved through having an empire, having an outwardly expanding entity, because as we are now, the stagnant entity we are, we're looking inward, and so that we're in an inward phase, aren't we? And so I don't think it could ever be achieved. Even back then, in the empire days in the 19th century, there was still a Welsh, Scottish, and English identity. You know, you saw the rugby teams and the football teams existing, for example. That'd just be the basic example. Obviously, also me being Welsh, you have the Welsh language still survived, just about, and you still had all the regional little quirks. In England, you have that as well, Yorkshire and Cornwall, etc. But anyway, I think one way it could exist, I know we haven't brought it up yet, was Kansas UK coming in, And with an entity like that, if we were working in conjunction quite closely with a kind of global faction, which was quite common instead of the European style we've just had, I think you'd end up having a lot more of a kind of British outlook in the media and in everything. It's like, oh, as part of the Kanzak, Britain does this instead of as part.
Can I just say, what about including India in Kanzak? Like, what is the objection to that?
Population, because Kanzak it would include a Tasmania, like a trans-Tasmanian travel arrangement as well, apparently, supposedly.
Yeah.
And if you open that to India, oh boy.
Yeah, I mean,
I've got to object to Kanzak in that, well, a lot of Canadians seem to be the most progressive trats there are.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Do you want a global union led by Boris Johnson, whatever she is, Ardern in New Zealand, and Justin Trudeau?
See, I think everyone's too hard on Canadians because I think the British Columbians get a hard time.
Yeah, they're not in charge.
They're only just above Seattle, though. And they get.
I think.
Alberta is also pretty based.
It is.
How many people live there?
Yeah, I know. But how many people? How many?
Toronto.
The problem the problem with Canada, it's the French Canadians, like the Quebec and Montreal.
They're quite conservative as well, though, aren't they? Relatively.
No,
Yeah, but they're very like.
But they're French. They're French.
Yeah.
Why would you want to LARP as a Frenchman?
Yeah, I know.
Can we just take like the western part of because Alberta, British Columbia? Can we just take that bit and then just leave the rest to just New France or something?
Yeah, they talk about that. Well, it's not the rest, it's just Quebec that is culturally.
Yeah, but they're leftists in the east, pretty much.
Look, and anyway, lads, I think you're forgetting how much the population. They're not actually. Scotland, was it Canada, Australia, and New Zealand put together don't have the population of the UK, I think, and so you're still talking.
So what's the point of having a union with them if they're not
land, resources, Joss, resources and land. You're not thinking imperial.
No, you're saying we should have this global union because it'd be so powerful, and then it's like, well, they're not going to get much of a say because we're way more powerful than them already.
Shh.
That logic doesn't follow.
There is a lot of oil in Canada, in Alberta.
We need bases. We need to at least project the power to.
That's.
Don't you first need power to project?
We do have a few islands here and there, like Ascension, that we use as bases.
I reckon we should be going for the equator so we can have rocket launch sites.
Oh yeah,
we have one.
I do think
we have one in Guyana.
We do.
Isn't that French?
You don't have a. Yeah,
that's
French Guyana.
It's British Guyana as
well. British Guyana doesn't exist.
It's Suriname.
No, that's the Dutch Guyana. Oh, it's just Guyana.
It's just
Guyana.
Yeah.
Just.
We also have Belize, and Ascension's quite close to the equator. So is the British Indian Ocean Territory.
Yeah, British Indian Ocean.
I think you guys are thinking too small with regards to terrestrial colonialism.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah, but it sails under the radar, though. That's the thing.
The only thing that I think what needs to happen is we need to keep the British Union together as long as we get to the space age. Once we get to the space age, then we can start doing the projection outwards.
Look, I don't know whether you guys have looked into the free private cities idea. The sort of sponsoring free cities around the world.
I think we need. Yes, I think we need litigation cities.
So basically, tax havens around the world.
Hong Kong's everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we need. That's where the empire should have gone.
That's where it should go now. It's already been done privately in South America.
Well, I think looking external, and I think this is what
I believe the Portuguese Confederation.
Well, whatever the word. I mean, you can. For anyone watching, you can look up. What's it called? Prospero. There's an island off Honduras that it's already been done privately.
Yeah,
I think Dubai is kind of that.
Didn't Panama do like a private city as well?
I don't. Another example would be in Uruguay. There's like a shit ton of these little tiny industrial residential zones.
Oh no, Uruguay. I think it's Uruguay.
That they have very low regulations, but they produce like double digits of the country's GDP. So what you do is you basically build these up, and you have a ridiculous amount of economic power. And
Look
at
at
that
this
point,
country.
you can start projecting power from there.
But that's like that's what the like the Virginia company and
it's the East India Company.
and the Boston and the Massachusetts company. That's like what the foundations of the 13 colonies were. They were just corporate territories for trading goods and sort of expanding.
So I'm not convinced of the Kansas idea, but that is something that I could definitely get behind.
I think. I mean,
if you want to go down that route, then fine.
I mean, the only way that Kansas would work, in my opinion, and this is where I would, again, I don't know if it would happen. I don't think it would happen, but you would have to overturn, or you would say to you're Boris Johnson, and you would say to Trudeau and Ardern and whoever the Australian Prime Minister is, you would turn around and say
I love how out of those three we didn't know who the Australian Prime Minister is.
Yeah, I thought that as I said it earlier.
I don't know. Yeah, I think is it Scott or something?
Scott,
something like that.
Scott Morrison.
Scott Morrison, that's it. Yeah, you turn around to all three of them. Okay, to be part of the Kansas Union, you're going to have to overturn the your 1982 acts of Parliament in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And
full annexation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the only way that. And then if they do it, then it's like, okay, now we're in business.
Imperial Federation ho.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't. The idea of just doing some sort of weak alliance, if it's going to be a free movement thing, or free trade, or like military alliance, like what else is there to it, unless you go full on annexation?
I mean that would be. And this is the thing, is that now before people say, okay, well, this is just a bit of fancy thing, there has been talk with the Canadian Conservative Party of actually overturning the 1982 Parliamentary Act.
Amazing.
So we're going to have the Imperial Federation. We're going to have it where the UK, where in my world, where Canada should be a constituent nation of the UK.
Well, yeah, if they win the next general election.
Damn right.
Maybe the Conservatives in Canada could. Can
we re-annex Malta as well? Well, we're out. We need someone.
Yeah, they want to be part of the. Well, they wanted to be part of the UK anyway.
They should have been, but Labour were in charge at the time.
First thing first, we need to get from Joe Biden. The first trade deal we should get from Joe Biden is some of those Dominion voting machines.
Let's stop right there now.
Dominion of Canada voting machines.
Okay. I think what we need to do in future. Now, I was talking tonight, not you, Knight, talking to Luther Knight to Cringe Walker about this.
India.
I was going to come to that, Jaws.
India.
Now, we need, basically, as Britain, I think we need to start weaning ourselves off of America.
Yes.
I think America's a done deal at this point. I think the future is
stop relying on us.
I think the future is Indian.
It's so corrupt out there.
It is
so corrupt.
It is, but the problem is America's no better now.
No, it's quite a bit better than India.
It's a
in
different
terms of
form of
corruption.
Official sources are claiming Joe Biden won with about 120 billion votes. So there we go.
One thing I will say about India is the military class of India, especially the regiment, because with India, a lot of their military and their officer class are actually like family tradition of officers and military. And
the Indian military, we need to give them a navy, basically.
But they are really pro-British. It's actually shocking how some of them are actually.
They still play cricket. That's
They still play.
Yeah, but here's the thing about India and cricket is that a few years ago they realised they've got about 1 billion cricket fans and they've got all the money that comes from it, and they basically bought international cricket. They bought it off us. And when we talk about let's have India into this Kanzak,
I'm not saying they join Kanzak. I'm saying it'll be Kanzak with India.
They would do. They would flex that that financial muscle.
That's what America does. That's what America does to us already.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we just
and
basically
America try to escape that.
Yeah, we want to kind of escape that, but
I would rather do that with someone who's not Irish as their leader.
Britain's got to survive somehow. America can go do it, and Britain's got to keep
being an
jumping
Indian colony.
but jumping onto the next as a parasite does, jumps onto the next thing, onto the next host. Is what we do. This is you got to know. This is the nation that birthed the Conservative Party.
Yeah,
I'm joking,
well,
of course.
the Conservative Party is about anti-radicalism. I mean, its historical roots emerged as the kind of they didn't like the kind of radical ideas of
the Party of the Church of England.
Yes, first of all, the radical ideas of certain bishops and the Levellers, and then it was the radicalism of the 18th century Whigs. So that's kind of the historical roots. They're not conservative in the American sense at all. It's a different meaning. But the thing is that there's nothing America has now that we would want. Because I say I said to Don the Pleb, I said, you're a country now under occupation. And he said, yeah. And you got to treat America, we should be addressing every broadcast to America with Ici Londres. These are your code words for this evening.
So,
hello.
Yeah,
hello.
It really is like that.
I mean, did any of you see actually something very surprising come out from Macron about how he's speaking about?
Yes,
I'm ashamed to be British when the French are more based.
Yeah, don't let me give the French any credit for anything.
The French are very protective of their culture, and they always have been. And that's one thing we should envy about them.
Okay, guys, let's put this into perspective. While it's interesting, Macron is playing this interesting side character of his. I just want to remind you that coming up, I think it's this year, towards the end of this year, you've got the French presidential and assembly elections, and currently Le Pen and the National Rally Party, or whatever they call themselves now, are absolutely killing it in the polling.
Let's go, France leaving the EU. End it.
Brexit, boys.
With the second round, they're still about 10 points behind Macron.
Yeah, but last time, P-Man, they were 20 points behind. Like on the second round, they're 10 points. They're closing it, so they're closing the gap.
I remember it well.
So the reason why you're getting these sort of nationalistic base takes is it's basically it's a knee-jerk reaction to fear. Now, I can tell you now, let's just say in a hypothetical scenario in the UK, you had a party coming up behind the Conservatives, which was nationalistic and far-right and anti-Islamic and everything else. Where do you think the Conservative Party would go?
I love how you're talking about theoretical when it already happened in the UK and it was called UKIP and forced the EU referendum.
I don't think the UKIP were nationalistic. Not. I'm just
what?
Not like the national.
Not like the French.
Not like the Front National, la Front National.
No, because the BNP were the equivalent to the Front National.
Oh my lord!
Are they that far? Are they that?
No, because his daughter has tried to reform the party, but they are still relatively quite.
Sorry. I mean, French always take things. Why Europeans can't help but take things too far? Can they?
French and Germans do that all the time.
Yeah,
can we just bar them? Can we just build a wall around Germany and France together? Just leave them in their own world.
It's called the North Sea, and
I wonder how many communists voted for Le Pen in the second round, because he did have a communist party. I wondered how all those votes transferred in the second round, because I bet you majority of communists in France voted for Le Pen in the second round.
Oh yeah, anarchy. We got to remember, France came so close to being communist, and it'd have been so funny if they did. Because before the war, the communists were like 40% up in France.
Yeah. Oh, it was close, and especially after the war, it was very close.
The Italians did.
Yeah. Actually, I was just going to go back to British point on the monoculture. I think Britain could become monoculture, but at the same time, I think there would need to be a bit of give and take, and I think where the take would be was we would, on the educational front, you would have to let the English and Scottish identity go. I think it does. Unfortunately, the position that we're in at the moment, it's become a binary choice between British identity and English and Scottish identity. or that's the framing that is come up with, and I think you would have to let the concept of England and Scotland go, like the fact that we and this is where you think we say how medieval we are. I mean, I imagine the French have let the concept of the French kingdom go. I imagine the Germans have let the concept of the Holy Roman Empire
No,
go.
they're still Bavarians.
Yeah, but they're not.
There is that Prussian-Bavarian divide still.
There is that Bavarian
and East-West, and there's still a bit of Hamburgerish, Holstein. If they're from Holstein, there's also obviously there's still in the German world. There's still a divide between Austria and Germany. In France, you still have Occitanians who hate Paris. Well, you have Paris and everyone who isn't Paris.
Yeah, who doesn't hate Paris? Like around the whole world, not just in France.
Yeah, you still have people of Toulouse who don't like it. You have Burgundish. You have in Belgium, you still have the Walloons and the Flemish having a go at each other.
Yeah.
In Spain. Let's not even let's not open up that can of worms. Sweden still has a lot of issues with the Finns up in the north of Sweden. Polish even still have a lot of issues between the Catholic and the Protestant Poles.
Actually, yeah, they're pretty.
And the Lithuanians as well on the border of Poland is there as well, and the Ukrainians in the south there. Italy,
the Balkans.
Italy, my God, Italy could explode into city-state at any moment.
Let's go global city-states. Let's do it.
So basically, what the monarchies, right, were holding all these countries together. Were the things that held these countries together, especially a country like Italy, for example, or Germany.
And that's what holds us together. Because I had this debate with a well-known a YouTuber I think is he a YouTuber? He might be a YouTuber, but a well-known Twitter user in our circles who I put forward, and this is in a thread with British Knight. I put forward the idea that the nation, the British nation, is the crown is the embodiment of Britain, effectively. And he objected to that and said, no, the people are.
Without the crown, Britain would no longer exist. I think the monarchy is the last thing.
Because the people weren't going to form Britain without the crown. It always started with the crown.
That literally sounds like a communist argument about the workers forming a country without a CEO.
Well, yeah, and his argument was that what makes Britain is sort of via the people and everything else. But that's the after effect of crown intervention in creating the concept of the British state.
Like Britain as we might still call it Britain, but Britain as we understand it would no longer exist. Like, for example, there's a reason we separate Imperial France from post-Imperial France.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they're recognised as two separate political entities, and also two separate modes of government and cultural identities.
Yes. And I still think the worst thing we ever did. I still stand by one of my wild ideas is that we shouldn't have never gotten rid of the Kaiser in Germany. And we should have reinstalled. Tried to reinstall the Tsar as well.
The monarchies of Europe all need to be the ones that got deposed. All need to come back. Greeks need Constantine. He's living He's living in northwest London. He's available. The Italian claim. The Italian claimant's a bit dodgy. He has links to the mafia, but there is an alternative to him. Germany,
the German can use ours. They can use ours.
What's wrong with the mafia?
They've got a choice of three kings in Germany. They can go down the Prussian route, reinstate
the Crown Prince of Poland living in London as well.
Yeah. As an aside, one of my favourite conspiracy theories is concerning the Bavarian king, because he is also the last Stuart claimant. By some bizarre twist.
Wait, is that the guy in Liechtenstein?
I don't know. He's the Bavarian king.
It's the Bavarian crown prince or something, or the
Bavarian crown prince.
Yeah.
But what happened was that his parents were in Germany, in Bavaria. and then shortly before the princess went into labour, they flew to London for a few days. The crown prince of
Do you think
Bavaria was
people
born.
reinstall the jacket?
He was born in a London hospital, and then a few days later they jetted back off to Germany again, because there is this thing that the king, just to make sure that if that Stuart claim was to be still active, the child would need to be born in London.
That's hilarious.
And but it's a way of explaining why they would suddenly take a few days break when she's just about to give birth.
We need to bring back the Habsburgs as well.
Yeah,
I know.
They're still involved. They're still involved in European politics. I mean, it's,
they're still very involved in European politics.
Ursula von der Leyen, she's related to the House of Hanover.
That really would not surprise me in any way.
No.
And
but
also,
like there's Austrian Habsburgs, there's also Hungarian Habsburgs. They kind of
the House of Bonaparte. Have you seen the title holder of Bonaparte? He looks exactly like.
Have you seen? This is a slight anecdote, but I think there's rival. Is it trading companies or investment stockbrokers or trading companies in London, and the two leaders of them are, one is a descendant of Wellington and one is of Napoleon.
That's hilarious.
And they're still at war, so to speak.
I love the cosmic rhythm, man. But it's such a good theory.
It does rhyme very well.
Yeah. Oh man. We need.
Just to interject again, I have another super chat again from Roy Herbert for $1.38. I received 90% of my local votes standing at the UKIP as a UKIP candidate in 2019. That surprised me 3 years after the referendum. I think this may have been in reference to a previous point. So thank you again, Rory Herbert.
So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Herbert. So, would you want to reinstal the Napoleonic line, though? I wouldn't.
Or the Bourbons.
The Bourbon
No,
statute.
I reckon we just put a wall around France, as you say, blockade it from the channel.
I would put. I think because the Bourbon. The reason I wouldn't do the Bourbons because I believe the Bourbons have the control over Spain at the moment.
Oh, they do. Yes, they have the choice, don't they?
Super alliance between Spain and France, which is always a bad idea.
Oh yeah.
So I put
Trafalgar 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, basically it would have to come down to that. And so I'd put this chap as the emperor.
Jean-Christophe.
Yes.
The French emperor. Oh my God! Don't give him ideas.
Don't give him an emperor.
Well, if he's like Napoleon III, that's containable.
Yeah, he also has like the links to like his mother is like the crown princess of the two Sicilies and everything.
Two Sicilies, we're going way back now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we need constitutional monarchy. Do we all agree? If there's a democracy, best form of democracy.
Well, you have a look at the nations that score highest in the kind of happiness index.
Democracy,
and but they're all constitutional monarchies. The ones that consistently rank at the top are constitutional monarchies.
But the happiness index in itself is a bit misleading because you find that a lot of these countries that score very highly, they just simply have a different kind of definition of what they define as happy. And you tend to also find they're quite patriotic about the fact that they are scoring so highly in these charts as a nation, so they actually tend to promote themselves happier than they are.
But then if you talk about if you bring to mind all the constitutional monarchies of the world, and you just go, actually, that's they're decent standards of living, they're okay. You just think compared to a lot of other systems in the world,
it's better than a republic. Look at South America.
Yeah.
Let's just say that, like, how much power does... I know it's technically a constitutional monarchy, but what does the monarch actually do nowadays?
Technically in charge of the army.
Yeah, but what is that?
The monarch still
if you're talking about happiness indexes and quality of life, that shows that it has to have some sort of actual effect.
Okay. The thing about the power of the monarchy is that because of Queen Elizabeth II has been on for so long, and because she's refused to exercise her power, people have forgotten what her powers are.
Exactly.
She does actually have a lot of power. She does have the power of veto, for example. She does have the power to kick out a prime minister if she so decides. She can literally stop a government.
It
She
would have been
wanted to.
nice under Blair, Your Majesty.
Well,
Just
no,
saying.
yeah, but she did try back in the 60s to prevent a prime minister from taking office. She got burnt, and that's why she never refused to. That's why she refuses to exercise her
That's
power
what I'm
now.
saying.
Actually, she had
Prince
to
George-
intervene in 74. In 74,
Yeah.
there was the election result was so close.
And
She,
I think Suez burnt her quite badly as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think, but Prince
Bloody
George is going to be
Americans.
Galactic Emperor. That's my plan.
Bloody Americans ruining things again. You ruined a monarchy as well. Do you want to ruin anything more?
But guys, there is kind of a thought question here. What if, for example, let's just say it wasn't William to be in line to be king. Let's just say it was Harry.
He was so
How would
good
we-
until the
how would-
American.
How would
Yeah.
we deal with that?
Again, another
What would
thing
we do?
America ruined.
Is that like a conspiracy theory that they had to mute Harry's power levels
I think so.
somehow?
If Harry ever became king, I would unironically support that Bavarian crown prince to come back and bring back the line.
Do you not think that the kind
William
of
of
the
Orange 2, Electric Boogaloo.
I would unironically.
don't you think the machine would really restrict him? You know, he'd be named king, and he'd go, right, day one, I want to do this, and just the whole machinery of the monarchy would just go.
You're forgetting the third party in this claimant war. There is a person amongst you right now who has a claim to being being a head of state for Britain.
Wait, me? Were you talking to me, right?
No, it's
you're talking
Mr.
to me.
Lord Protector over here.
I definitely have a better claim than you, Owen.
No. I'm Lord Protector. I'm going to be Lord Protector one day.
One thing I will say is, if that ever did happen with Harry becoming king, it would further solidify us becoming the 51st state with America, especially with Meghan Markle. Because this is the funny thing. I remember hearing it was a couple of months ago now that there was talk that Meghan Markle would run for the Democratic nomination in the next presidential thing, which means if she was to become the Democrat nominee and president, because let's be honest, Democrats are going to win the next elections for the next 50 years, that means you would have a ex-British royal / British royal, I guess, ruling America.
What if, right, instead of her, it's her? She got a son.
Yes, she does. They do have.
So if he can somehow press his claim on England and become American president, then he can actually reunite.
See, Boris can become prime minister and president of America, prime minister of Britain, president of Russia, and America.
Oh, yeah, Russia as well, yeah.
Yeah, he can do all three, and he can also Turkey as well, I believe.
Yeah, I know there is some connection there.
Yeah, so Boris could unite the entire world.
We need American loyalists like you, Chicago Lib, and the Native American and a few others to effectively infiltrate the government and at the 11th hour just go out and say
imagine the world, Dominion of North America.
Order 66, the Republic. And when you have like bloody CNN and Nancy Pelosi screaming about you want to bring down democracy, you can just stand there with Chicago Lib and say yes.
Well, yeah. That's what I'd run on. Vote for Chicago. It's the last time
It would be
ever have to
democracy, but the way we want it.
Yes.
British
We're just
Grenadiers are
fortifying the
fantastic.
monarchy, guys.
Owen, can you play my theme tune?
Oh, the synth one.
The synth Grenadier March, yeah.
Yeah, I think only AI can do that because he's in charge of the thing. If it was me, I would.
I wouldn't
the
show the
Casio
visuals.
keyboard.
I wouldn't show the visuals. The visuals are a little bit sus and likely to get your stream attacked.
Well, ever since the certain incident in New Zealand, they don't allow the comments on any of those videos either now.
No, not on this one. The visuals is just a rotating certain symbol. It's not quite a mid-century German symbol, but it's related.
Oh, I never noticed that. Now I'm upset. No, it's not. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I hate. Okay, worst thing about British national.
Where's me musket?
God, that's so piercing. I'm wearing headphones.
A tower, row to the British Grenadiers.
Front rank, fire!
I love the meme where it's like British Empire engaged, and it's just the from the Patriot, just wrecking the Americans and the British Grenadiers. Anyway.
Laughs in British.
I've never actually watched the end of the page because I know how it goes. So I just watch the beginning and just go, America's defeated. There we go. That's the end of the film for me.
It's in that collection of George Clooney movies where George Clooney, fucking
Mel Gibson.
I don't know who his name is. I know he's the same actor. He does these like incredibly historically inaccurate films to try to portray.
Yeah, it's Mel Gibson, dude.
Mel Gibson to try and portray certain countries as like
freedom.
Yeah. Anti-English. Well, that's why I need to do like basically a film where you take down like a British redcoat takes down Mel Gibson and just go, "This is for Mr. Goldstein." Whap whap whap.
So, I was going to say, right. The worst thing about the cringe nationalists we have in this country, patriotic alternative.
Oh God.
Is that the German nationalists?
They're not even English nationalists, are they? They're British. They're British in a sort of weird Germanic way. It's so strange.
Yeah, it's like they've imported German philosophy and then using that. It's like, dude, get your moral basis right, for God's sake.
Yeah, I mean, PA is
if you think the Austrian painter did good work, you're really not doing British nationalism right.
Unlimited cringe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like I always come under attack for them whenever I mention Dresden, and it's like, yeah. I was like, they need to realise that Dresden isn't in England, for God's sake. I mean,
no one cares about Dresden.
No one cares about Dresden, and
I care about Dresden. It was a beautiful city.
But one thing I like doing is because obviously a lot of them are certain deniers of a certain event. They say to me, "You do realise 400,000 Germans perished?" I go, "No, they didn't. You got no proof. You got no proof. That's just German conspiracy. I've read the report suggesting that happened."
That whole bombing of Dresden thing, I remember about 2 years ago, I was doing, was it Fake Accents Unite? And Mark was there, Britisher, myself, and Sarah, daughter of Albion. And she asked me on that show, well, what was the justification for the bombing of Dresden? Because she is an art historian. That's her thing. And she considered all the artworks and all the architecture of Dresden being firebombed to be offensive. And I explained, this is total war, a concept that Germany was fully on board with.
Yeah, that's how war works prior to this century.
Yeah.
And in Air Marshal Harris, you have the person who goes, right, whatever they do to us, we do back to them tenfold, and it wins the war quicker.
So let's talk about Coventry, Swansea.
Yeah, man, I grew up in Coventry.
Plymouth,
Bath, a lot of London, Newcastle, Manchester, Southampton, Liverpool, Cardiff. Oh God, the list just goes on. They've bombed a lot of places.
The way things are gone with Daughter of Albion and Patriotic Alternative, Mark Collett, you could see how they could have got their claws into her. Because
because she's a woman.
Yes. No. Literally, they played on her empathy. They played on her empathy. Yeah.
I mean, first of all, if I had a time machine and I was to go back to the suffragette era, the height of it, I would definitely have a video file waiting just to show them all and show the parliamentarians at the time. Just, okay, before you pass this bill, let me show you this certain woman called AOC. And 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 then also a
Let
certain
me show you the
Labour
future.
Party Labour front bench, and just in 100 years' time, and see if you want to go down this route. Just see.
Step inside the shadow zone,
Yeah,
the phantom zone.
the Phantom Zone. Yeah.
No, and then you
Yeah.
just go further, and you just go, oh, so we should just leave it to man. You're just like, no, make it
Because
earned
that
entirely.
genie's well out of the bottle now, so there's not
Yeah,
much you
so
can do
you
about
can't. You try and disenfranchise people. It's not going to work.
that. Yeah, it's not.
No,
This is the thing I had against the NRXs, because they were going, "Oh, we just need to reduce the voting franchise." I said, "Okay, good luck with that."
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You know, you want political suicide? You do, go ahead. Look, the only way it's going to happen is if you have a coup or something happen in the Heinleinian way, where you have, and the only way it would happen is if it'd be maybe something like if you pay tax. You could argue in a roundabout way of saying, look, the age is an arbitrary number. Is an arbitrary number that
I'll be
shouldn't
careful
be
with
used.
that argument.
That shouldn't be
Ryan,
used.
I do not want to kick you from my stream.
Hold up. Age is not an arbitrary number. Then stop that. Age is a poor metric to use as a barrier for voting age.
And then you classify all women as children
for
right.
the franchise. For the franchise, and we need to get to a point where the franchise should be earned, because you need to understand the value of your vote. I think people could get on board with that, but you can't make it too extreme.
It's an argument that I use again when people are talking about immigration and stuff, and they say, like, if somebody who's moved here from, like, I don't know, Germany or Spain or whatever, and they say, "Oh, well, I pay tax, I should have access to this," and I'm like, okay, so should a British person who is too poor to pay tax not get access to that? That sort of line of argument.
But obviously there'll be rules against that.
Yeah,
there'd be like, you can't just turn up here, pay tax, and then be like,
exactly.
Yeah,
like if a Chinese guy buys up a load of real estate in London and pays a bit of tax on it.
Isn't it in America?
The left's claim to grand history is their constant extending of the voting franchise, and we can see this now in Scotland, where they've now made it so every immigrant can vote, and they claim to be national.
Same in Wales.
Yeah, but the thing is that's not really ideologically driven. That's just who will get us into power. Because
it is ideologically driven, because they do not believe
their ideology is getting into power.
That's what it's all about. And so you also hear about the left-wing chattering classes talking about, at the same time, disenfranchising people over the age of 60, or disenfranchising people who hold religious beliefs. They talk, they give with one hand, they take away with another.
Well, yeah, cause it's about their own self-interest.
I do disagree, though. I think this is very ideologically driven. I reckon it's what they see as their purpose is to extend the voting franchise even further to essentially to illegal immigrants, to people as young as possible, because it's just what they've always taken pride in.
Well,
and
would they do it if those, say, immigrants came and they started voting Conservative? Because you see this in America. In America, that the Asians aren't voting Democrat in large numbers. Well,
Hispanics and Cubans especially.
Yeah, Cubans. But the thing there is, this is where it comes back to the identity of being British, is that you have a political party, aka Labour, which I genuinely think is on board for abolishing Britain. In the sense,
I think that's Labour's MO.
The political union, because
it always has been.
Well, this thing is now, like with Scotland, they've given up on Scotland. England and Wales, they are. I mean, like Wales, they have control over. So, sad. Sad. England, they apart from outside London, I don't know how it's looking for them. I think in metropolitan cities they're strong. Outside, probably not so strong. So when it comes to them winning a general election, or winning a sort of any general election, it's near impossible. It doesn't matter, because they have the keys to the kingdom anyway, because they have the keys to the union, and they effectively destroying it. They're like, I mean, imagine like a goblin outside of a plane, and it's like pulling like electronic parts and just trying to bring down the plane. That's what Labour is at the moment. They might not be inside controlling it all and having the the access to what they need, but they're outside and they're just wrecking everything from the outside, and causing enough damage because that's all they have left. They know they're not going to win, and because to win a general election now, they would have to win every seat, all the swing seats in England, plus certain Conservative seats, including Jacob Rees-Mogg's seat, which I can tell you will never, ever, ever happen. It will never, ever happen.
The funniest thing about it as well is that the Tories get the redrawing the boundaries to make it even more impossible.
I'm okay
because
with
they're
that.
getting rid of a lot of they're getting rid of a lot of the urban constituencies.
Yeah, so.
So it's because we will be a one-party state after that. I don't. That's the thing. But the problem is we need a useful opposition, because Tories get content way too easily. Even though I am a member, I'm still upset.
They're doing a pretty good job of not kind of undoing anything that the left have already done.
The
Yeah, I'm still a party member.
Right-wing party. There is no right wing in this country. We have a centre and we have a left. We don't have a right.
Remember, they've been in power for something like 3/4 of the past 100 years. So can we really very much?
Even if you had any politician that did espouse any right wing, I mean, God help them, because they'll be given the Trump treatment.
So, are you still party member?
They live in fear. In fear. The last 25 years, the Conservative Party has lived in fear of the press, of the chattering classes. They just. Some of them privately would say, "Oh, I'd love to do this," but they're just they're frightened beast.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the press and the universities.
Yeah, they've been weakened. The trouble is, like, if I, because I am still a party member and I'm still running for an elected position. If I was to go out, which I quite happily would do tomorrow, in front of, say, a local TV, local radio, and actually just lay out my beliefs and my policies, I would no doubt be condemned by a good portion of the higher ups in the party. I'll be condemned by the media. I'll be called a Trump sympathizer, a Trump supporter. I'd be called everything under the sun. I'd be called far right. I probably
would be kicked out of the party.
Yeah, and I know I would be like literally Satan on earth in their eyes.
You consider well, like Carl and UKIP rape man.
Have you guys actually noticed that among like the young Conservatives, they find like the weirdest, most strange member?
The
Tories, his name, right? Tom
Harwood.
Harwood. No, not Harwood. There's an even worse one than him.
Oh God!
Is that the one that dressed up as Thatcher?
The horror show one. Yeah.
Oh fucking hell! That guy is he really popular?
No,
not outside of his. Okay, here's the thing, because I follow some of the Blue Beyond accounts just to see what that wing of the party is saying, and what it is that he comes across in that little circle as charming. Hey, it's our wacky friend, and he kind of insinuates himself on being the wacky friend. Although when you drill down, okay, what are your politics? Oh, you're kind of like indistinguishable from a Lib Dem. Okay,
yeah.
But he can talk the talk at social events. And how many
are American here? Imagine the Republican Party imagine if it was 90% controlled by Mitt Romney rhino types, and
because it is
the base membership
I don't have to
demoralized.
I don't really have to go and imagine that. That kind of already exists.
Yeah. So right. Okay. The thing about young Tories, if we're going to talk about, because look, when we talk about the future of Britain, ladies and gents, the future of Britain is the Conservative Party. It remains that. So young Conservatives are kind of the people who will be in charge of this country in memoriam. But the thing is about young Conservatives, right? The problem what happens in the Conservative Party is that the good Conservatives, which are 90% of them, because young Tories are actually very much the people who have been watching Sargon now for about 5 years, or they've been watching. They're watching people like us right now. That's what they're doing.
Hello.
Yeah, and hello. I was a young Tory as well, and I remember going to many function, and you mentioned you mentioned Sargon, and they just whisper underneath it, "I watch him too. I can't say anything to the upper guys, but we all watch him." They're like that, you know. But now obviously Maya Tusi's the big guy in the young Tory circles, I think, right now, which is
went to like a thing last year, and the thing is, again, I'd say when it comes to like, I was talking to like a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, and they both were like big into like Paul Joseph Watson, Sargon, people who.
But they won't say anything to the elder.
Yeah, well, they said it to me because I watched too. It's like,
it's not so much the elder. There's a middle layer in the Conservative Party, and that's the problem. It's the kind of a lot of the problem came from those guys who came in as researchers back in the early 2000s, and they make all the right noises socially, and they get in as researchers, and then they get into the pipeline to become prospective parliamentary candidates. Then they're parachuted into a constituency they don't give a toss about, and that's the problem. It's that middle layer. The old Tory grandees, who kind of make up the 1922 committee, and some of the older members, they would love to be more conservative, but they get told by these spivs in suits, you can't do that anymore. You can't say that. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And our favourite conservative researcher, Lolcow, on Twitter, who blocked me.
Yes.
Name begins with Bert and ends in Harris.
Yeah. Our favourite spad.
Our favourite. So you've got to deal with people like that because he's in the pipeline and he's very pally with American Democrats. Very pally.
I mean, this is the thing. At this moment in time, there is the Conservative Party is at a crossroads where I don't think the conservative US Democrat types can have complete control of the party like they used to, but at the same time, on the other side, the more right wing of the party needs to grow some balls or step aside or move on to something else, because if you're going to do something, it has to be done and it can't be left any longer, because we know the situation, it's getting worse. And with Biden and the Democrats now in America with unlimited power at their disposal, it's going to get even worse, because how culture filters from America into the UK. It's going to get a lot worse. And unfortunately, when it comes to talking points, the current right, I guess you could say, in this country, or what exists of it, is still stuck in 2016 land of conversations. And so it's going to get worse. And I mean,
I think it's even worse than that. I think the problem is that so many in the Conservative Party and the Republican Party are stuck in that kind of economics business mindset, but we make businesses function better than the left. And no one cares. They care if your flag is trashed. They care if your statues are torn down. They care if your history is being written. On Twitter, I'm seeing it kind of exploding. This whole chest feeders thing. The NHS says no.
Yeah, you have to mention that. And
you go, that's the battleground. That's where the Conservative Party should be coming in and going, no, that's not your job, NHS.
The reasonable response, and this is what I think most of the people who voted Conservative last time would want to happen, is the government would take that NHS regional group, that regional body that have been saying that, Brighton, you sack them all, you put it in special administration, and then you initially put an edict or government out there saying chest feeding is a pseudo-Marxist bullshit redefining of terms, and we're not abiding by it, and if you abide by it, you will lose your job.
Exactly. But they're not doing it. They're just not doing nothing.
So the thing is, in our circles, we always go on about how bad the Tories are. But what we got to do, we got to
with good reason.
For good reasons, there are good reasons. But we've got to take a step back now and look at what is now in the mainstream conscious, from where we began, because I think we are making ground. I think we're making good ground. You think the culture war is now front and center and is a genuine things that which are being talked about. Critical race theory is getting genuinely talked about. The biggest thing I think we've had is the court case about the right to offend, which was the biggest win in England and Wales, especially for over the past few years. I think, and the critical race theory one is a big win as well.
Yeah.
The Rule Britannia controversy, now that was a massive win for us. Talking about public opinion, the court of public opinion felt in our favour there.
I don't think it was I think what would have. I don't think that was a win. I think that was a truce. I think what would have been a win is if government defunded the BBC and forced all those little shits onto the street looking for another job. That would have been a win in my book.
Yes.
Statues has been a win.
I disagree further. I want to go further than that, because a lot of these people who suggested this came from another country. I'd say they should all be deported immediately.
I'm Australia.
As much as I'd like that, I don't think legally we could do all of that with every single one.
So, no, but they came in from a foreign country. So if they came from a foreign country and they're trying to undermine our culture, we should deport them.
Oh yeah, that was a Finnish woman, wasn't it? That came up with the idea. I mean, yes. I guess in theory you could, but I mean, yeah, I guess you could.
But then we talk about the statue stuff that's going on. Right. The government is acting quite strongly against the removal of statues. In fairness to them, they've even said directly to the City of London, you cannot remove any statues. You're not allowed to.
Yeah. Well, the government actually. To be fair, was what I will. I
think they're also getting involved in the Cecil Rhodes one as well, aren't they?
Yeah, the local government minister, which is Jenrick, he's actually passed a law saying that you cannot. All statues that you want to remove a statue, it has to come to my office, and then what he says is, "It'll come to my office, and I'll just reject it." So, your statues are saved. The only risk is if Labour does become the next, if Labour wins the general election, that means Labour has control over all the statues.
Well, but what you're doing, you're forcing Labour now to take up this patriotic position, at least on face, because obviously, even though it's a lot of it's just surface stuff from Boris, but that means Labour's still got to do the surface stuff as well.
Do you know who hated this surface stuff though? Who came out against it? It was the Libertarian Party in the United Kingdom. They were against the fact that they had Union Jacks.
Yeah. But you think Keir Starmer? You're talking about Labour, aren't you?
No. The Libertarian Party in the United Kingdom.
The Libertarian.
They came out against the Union Jacks if they claimed it was collectivism, carrying it, having Union Jacks in the background.
The Libertarians, bless.
As a libertarian, it's so. I looked at their manifesto, and as soon as they said abolish monarchy, I was like, put away. Go away.
How does it feel to be a literal traitor?
I think I know there's two libertarians, notable libertarians with us who are guests who are dual streaming, so I don't want to be too antagonistic.
No.
Can we say small L?
No. Let me finish.
Sorry.
I understand. I wouldn't vote for the Libertarian Party UK either, especially considering I've interviewed a former leading member who left deliberately because the party went leftist in their NEC.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is a crisis in the West with libertarianism because it's just been taken over by, as you just said, leftists. And I think the reason why is
the not real libertarian meme is true. I don't know what to say.
It's what we would call it's what me and Chicago would call lolberts or beltway libertarians.
Beltway, yeah, lolberts.
Yeah, so what we need to do, we need to not drop libertarian. What we need is to come up. It's to come up with a really well-defined vision and philosophy for a small state traditional outlook. The problem is with this comes back to the British argument, talking about Britain going forward, is that the right, especially these our circles we're in now, does not present a positive vision of the future, ever.
Space travel.
No, but we don't have a positive vision of the future. We only see things getting worse, and this is what we need to do to get to turn things around, is to finally present an actual coherent and positive vision of the future that people can aspire to. There's nothing aspirational about being right-wing right now.
Shut down the internet.
But yeah, I agree with that, and as well, we also need to, in a way, just ignore black pillars, because I just think they're fucking useless.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, when you see there's certain things, like, when it comes to, like, the chest feeding thing, that you can't ignore, because that is NHS, that's public, that's effectively our tax money being used by radical Marxists. So I have a right to complain and march down to Brighton and complain there, in theory. And many people around maybe some of you as well, on the stream here and around the rest of the country, will also have that right. But when it comes to, as you said, like, certain stories, I was just trying to think. There was another one which I saw, which was what was it? It was like usual. What was it, like? Bird watching, like, not enough, like, diversity, ethnic BAME people of color in bird watching in rural England. It's like, okay, well, those sort of stories you just step over, just ignore, because it's obvious rage baiting trap that leftists are trying to set. It's quite obvious that those sort of ones. But
I would caution against that, because we saw with the gardening incident that some weirdo just writes that there's no such thing as native plants. We have to decolonize our gardens. We have to deconstruct what it means to have a garden. And you go, okay, let's step over him. And then you find out his background. He's connected to the Royal Horticultural Society. He's connected to, and you just think the people who push these things, they are the worm tongues in the ears of normally respectable institutions.
That 2 + 2 = 5 mathematics guy, I was absolutely going crazy over.
They are the worm tongues, but how did the king of Rohan deal with Wormtongue?
He cast him.
He
expelled him. He banished him.
He physically chucked him down the stairs.
Well, so you're literally saying what we need a show of force.
Well, no, he exiled him. Physical removal, as Hopper would say.
Do any of you guys follow? Do any of you guys follow James Lindsay on Twitter?
Yes.
Yes.
Because he put out a thread tonight where he was saying that precisely that, not helicoptering, because that's South American politics. We don't do that over here.
You know that Lindsay's been quite recently just parroting NRX talking points. Not parroting, but watering them down.
Well, yeah, because
he's obviously been reading certain material.
But the thing is that he said, if you have this kind of these people coming in and saying decolonize this, you just get rid of them. You as a manager, you should say, sorry, but you're not welcome in this organization anymore. If you're going to drag us down, get out. Here's a month's severance pay. Just go.
This is literally what Mulbug goes after, says to do in his open letter.
Well, I've had that recently in my local Conservative Party. We've had this new young chap who joined, and I went to talk to him on Facebook, like on my IRL account on Facebook, and I noticed that in some of his old posts, he had decolonize and some Black Lives Matter related content from a few years ago, and I just looked at it, and then I went to the local party chairman, and just said, he's a communist, we should expel him from the party. And he left of his own accord.
Uh-huh.
Now, I know that some would say, well, maybe he's changed his opinions. I don't want to risk it locally here. I don't want to risk it.
Yep.
All it takes is that you have to take positive action. I mean, at least you confront somebody about it.
So I just want to ask you guys. So when I say, what are your opinions about what I said about the right not having an aspiration?
That's what I've said since the start. That's why I pushed the space travel and future stuff.
You're techno Christian is what I call you. Like
I'm
even
not
though you're not
I'm-
Christian, techno conservative.
I struggle putting a label on myself.
Yes.
I know that's a really cringe thing to say,
No,
and a lot of
but
people say it. But
talking about cringe, I think you and Cringe Walker are almost in the same kind of line
yes, I
of
think
thinking.
cringe and I have a lot in common with regards to that kind of thing.
But what's achievable? What is an achievable positive vision that you can do within the next 12 months? And you can,
Let's say 5 years. Let's extend it out 5 years.
Well, 5 years. Okay, so
if you want this sort of vein, in Boris's initial plans were to do with investing in fusion power and opening up 2 spaceports in the UK.
He still did that. He's still doing that. To be fair.
Yeah, I don't know about the fusion stuff, but the spaceports are
he's
going
investing
ahead.
pretty heavy in fusion. He's done a lot.
I think one of the problems is he's got good ideas, but like I just brought up here's another example because I will probably wrap it up in a few minutes' time, but. Wrap this all up in a few minutes' time, if that's all right. I guess
it's up to British Knight as well.
It's up to British Knight. Yeah, you can
have an after party in British Knight's channel.
Yeah, go across British Knight's channel if you want. I don't know how you want to do this.
Oh no, it's fine.
I was joking. We can do it.
Sorry. Want to do what? Sorry.
So I was going to say we'll probably wrap it up in a few minutes' time. The stream.
Yeah, I'm happy for you to wrap up first, and then I'll do my outro afterwards because mine's quite lengthy.
Yeah. That. Yeah. I mean, you can do the outro on here as well if you want. I don't mind.
All right. And would you want me to go ahead first, or?
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead?
Okay. Thank you so much to everyone in both my chat and AI's chat for watching. If you wish to support my channel, you can do so at Patreon or Subscribestar, or donate via Streamlabs in the next few moments if you feel so inclined, or a one-off donation at paypal.me. In the description, you can find everyone in this stream's their Twitter account, which will inevitably lead to their YouTube accounts if they have them. You can also find me in Chicago at Mines. You can also join the Discord in the description. This has been the Current Crusade for the 10th of February 2021. Have an excellent day, everyone.
Thank you for dual streaming with us. This is I was worried this wasn't going to work. So it's been quite. I think it's been quite good. This sort of dual streaming, and as I said, I will include in the description British Knight's channel and all the other guys on here. Their social media stuff as well. What was going to say? One final. What we were talking about before I.
Vision for 5 years.
I was talking about the futurism stuff because I guess if you want to go for a sort of zoomed out view, most people have an idea of basically they have the Star Trek future or the sort of dystopian hell future. And you you basically point out, look, we're actually going down. We're doing things that put us towards directly the good one, not the bad one.
We need Mass Effect future.
When I play the games, I'll let you know my opinion on that.
Yeah. I'm not over keen on the legendary edition so far.
They took arse shots out, man. They were bad shots anyway. I'm going to be honest.
I don't care.
I can't stand in anime when they do arse shots, so I'm fine with it, to be honest.
It's revisionism. It's still.
Why are you gay?
I because I'm
Miranda's not even that fit.
I can remember the was it the PlayStation control cheat so you could see Lara Croft's bum in a variety of different angles.
That's it was a very interesting pic. It was like it's really pixelated if you see it today.
Yeah.
You get how
back in those days though. Oh.
Yeah, back in those days it was something else, but yeah, so when it comes to like vision in 5 years, I think
good future, not bad future.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that and this is something I would say is, the one thing
Jesus Christ,
P-Man, that was a bit extreme. When it comes to vision in 5 years, I think one thing, and this is especially for Boris Johnson, that this is his only fault that I can think, and this coalesced.
Only fault. He has many faults.
he has many faults, but I think this one fault is what encapsulates all the many faults that we would think. And I think he needs to learn to step over the media narrative.
Boris just wants to be liked.
That's his problem. That's one of his big problems. He needs just to step over, because when it comes to it, like Keir Starmer says, we want you to do this, he ends up doing it. He just needs to just say no and just continue. And that's all. Media, this is like BBC or Piers Morgan, like the fact that they're shutting the borders now due to COVID. You remember a year ago, that was what he was going to do, and the same media class now calling for all borders to be shut and saying, look, Germany's done this, everyone else has done it, what's wrong with you, why haven't you done it? A year ago,
yeah, that was saying it's racist.
Suggested it, and they were called far right, they were called reactionary, Trump-like reactionaries, and it was they were blasted for this. So he needs to learn, really, or somebody there needs to step over, ignore, and continue. But I don't see that happening anytime soon, and that's a shame, because he could be a great prime minister if he did that. I think he could be. I think he could be a great prime minister, but his own sort of narcissistic tendencies is what's going to be his undoing.
I think one thing that's like not space related but can be a positive vision, if you have a look at the repercussions of Brexit, it has allowed us to and what's gone down well with the public, this flexibility. Oh, we can get a vaccine quicker than anybody else. We can, and Ursula von der Leyen was
the global
even
trade stuff from
Ursula von der Leyen saying we are like a speedboat, and they're like a slow lumbering cargo ship.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, British Night closed up, and we're literally going on like almost another complete stream topic here. So I think we should probably close up just for the sake of the dual stream.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
Yeah,
it's been good.
So thank you all for joining. This was probably the most people we had on this single stream at one time on this channel. So been pretty good. And thank you, British Knights, for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us on. It's been a unique opportunity to be able to break the mold of the usual Current Crusade formula. I'm really happy to have been on.
Yeah, and thank you, Mesian Imperator, Chicago Liberal. Thank you for coming on with us. And thanks to everyone in chat who has in both our chats who have helped and contribute. And I guess we'll see you all later.
Shit. See you guys.